we will be free. For when the rising tide is turned in every London quarter, Parliament comes crashing down with Robert's Rules of Order.
And today's Cult of RONR, or whatever we're calling this thing, is January 4th. And I myself am a tie-dye guy who's not much in tie-dye at the moment, but along with the Pink Secretary, Carrie Ann Horlos.
The Pink Secretary of Liberty.
Pink, yeah. We'll figure this out as we go.
We'll figure it out, or not.
So today's question has to do with M. Carling's favorite job, tellers.
Oh, I might not get this right, and I need to know this.
And there's no pens involved, just tellers. Okay. If tellers are uncertain as how to credit a vote, the decision is made by the A. Chairman of the tellers, B. Parliamentarian, C. President, or D. the Assembly.
We don't follow that in national, so I'm going to have to reason this through. Give me the answers again slowly, and I'm going to rule them in or out.
Okay. Chairman of the tellers. That's
no,
A.
That can't be. There's not usually. Is there? I never even heard of a freaking chairman. I'm going to say no on that one.
B. The Parliamentarian.
No.
C. The President.
I'm going to hold on to that for a second.
And D. The Assembly.
Okay. I would say it's the Assembly, just by. I'm not sure. Just by ruling it elimination.
You're right.
Okay, so it made sense, even
Now,
though I wasn't sure.
Now, the reference point for this, because this is a rather obscure thing, is page 409, lines 16 to 20.
I can tell you at national conventions, it's been the secretary.
Well, I can tell you at St. Louis, they tried to use tellers, and it was a frickin' disaster.
Ms. Matson was very diligent, so I'm not saying that she ever ruled in a wrong way, but she would determine it, and if she was unclear, she would go ask the delegation chair. Mm-hmm. That's the way we've handled it in the past. Now, I don't think our convention rules provide for anything like that, but now I know.
In St. Louis, they tried to implement this bizarre thing about having tellers go to each state delegation to supervise the vote.
Oh, God, no.
Over what was going on, and they decided to put California last, which was a mistake because we had 10% of the convention for crying out loud.
You have 100 and something delegates.
And we already had our own method for all this anyway. And it had been developed in 2008 in Denver, and as delegation chair for 2010 for California, I tweaked it just a hair, and we had chain of custody for all the ballots all the way through. We had index cards so everybody was consistent on the sizes. We had one person verifying their delegate ribbons, one person taking the votes, and we had 3 or 4 people cross-counting the tallies. And then as a delegation chair, I did the totals, and we had sent them up to the secretary. Out of that whole convention, we missed 2 people having 1 vote each. One was because they were up on the dais helping the secretary, and we totally forgot about him. I apologized to that guy, and he was cool about it. And the other one was because we had a person that was schmozzing up in front and didn't vote.
And that happens.
It does happen. But we had it down to an art form, and California still uses that methodology today, as far as I know.
And just before we go to the section, some people might not know what a teller is. I didn't know until I joined the party. I wouldn't have known that terminology ordinarily. So how would you define a teller?
A teller, the way I understand it anyway, and I don't know if Roberts actually defines what they are or not.
I don't know if they do.
Let's go to the index real fast.
I don't think they do. I think they just assume.
You know, it's not like a bank teller, let's put it to you that way.
I was confused when I first heard the word.
Balloting procedure. Here we go. 414 about line 6. In balloting in a meeting where the voting is in the same room as the meeting, the chair appoints tellers to distribute, collect, and count the ballots and to report the vote. The number of tellers is dependent on the number of voters, and the number of offices to be filled or questions to be answered or the number of candidates. For a small group, 2 or 3 are usually sufficient. The tellers should be chosen for accuracy and dependability, should have the confidence of the membership, They should not have a direct personal involvement in the question or in the result of the vote to an extent that they should refrain from voting under the principles stated on 4407. So that's what they basically do, is they walk around and make sure that the ballots are circulated and collected.
And count.
And counted.
And count them and report the results.
Right. Usually at the national conventions, for most things, that falls to the delegation chairs to handle.
Well, partially.
Anymore.
So at national convention, the delegation chair will tally for their delegation.
Right.
And then they have a master sheet that goes to the national secretary's vote tellers.
Right.
Who then tabulates from there.
Which then goes up on the screen for everybody to see.
Right.
Right. So back to page 409.
But what about the confidence? It should not have a direct and personal involvement in the question.
Right.
Okay. This raised an interesting question. Because I objected to Aaron Starr counting, he was a teller, the at-large votes when the result was that his wife, Ms. Matson, won by 1 vote. And I said, ooh, whoa there, he has an interest here.
Yes, he does.
Well, Alicia raised a great point. She said, well, who counted the secretary votes for Colorado? Your husband did, right? Mm-hmm. Who counted the Utah votes for at-large? Mr. Bookman did. He was a candidate. Mm-hmm. There were so many conflicts. In the abundance of caution, the delegation chair should have someone else do it if their wife or whatever has an interest in that election.
Right.
Because that she was absolutely right.
And that goes to why every delegation should have a delegation chair and a delegation whip.
Yeah.
Because you need the whip to backstop the chair in case of things like this, or
they have to go to the bathroom.
Or in the case of what happened in St. Louis with California, the chair had to leave and go home because of a family emergency.
Right.
He basically had to leave to literally go to Hawaii because of an ailing parent going to the emergency room, and he left me in charge as delegation whip of the entire California delegation, which was one hell of a job, but we got the job done.
I mean, but she had a very valid point. It wasn't the same point because when there's a difference of 1 vote, I would think it's different. Right. And Colorado's votes got projected on the screen, and if Wayne counted everybody for me and there was somebody there that didn't vote for me, they'd have been like,
wait a minute, yeah.
And there were people in Colorado who didn't vote for me.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it goes. Yeah. And there'll be a lot more, I'm sure, this time.
But back to the original question, where the answer was the decisions made by the Assembly, what it says here in 409 is, the Assembly itself is the judge of all questions arising that are incidental to the voting or to the counting of the votes. In an election by ballot, for example, the tellers should refer to the Assembly for decision all questions on which there is any uncertainty.
Okay. I don't believe we've done that. If I'm correct, and this wouldn't have made a difference in the outcome, I'd have to look up because we did an audit of the at-large. There were 2 Joes running for at-large.
Oh, no.
There were Joe Bookman and Joe Bishop Henchman. And some people just wrote down Joe.
2 Joe B's, oh boy.
Yeah. And some people just wrote down Joe. And I think we invalidated those. Mm. I think that's what happened. Well, yeah, it wasn't going to make a difference in the outcome.
But at the same time, you can't clearly discern what their intention was by that.
Right. So I think that was reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't even realize they were both Joe B, too. That's pretty funny. So, be careful.
Well, it does matter because, the multiple names can cause multiple confusion.
That's why I love having pre-printed ballots, but we can't do that at National because 1 million people step forward to run for at-large.
Well, okay.
And I think that's it for that.
That kind of beats that one into the ground. So for the episode of January 4th, we're adjourned.
Yay!
Would they remember? Second my motion?
A second, baby. I second so hard.
Thank you, baby. I knew you'd second the shit right out of it.